Thank you very much, Michael Wood, for your precious thoughts. So, when we talk about the Edmund Hillary and mountain and Mount Everest, we always think of Himalayan Trust, which has always been a deep part of Sherpa people. And even though it was not mentioned a while ago, I'm bringing it forward because me, being a Sherpa girl myself, I have a deep gratitude and respect towards Edmund Hillary and New Zealand Himalayan Trust for all the contribution that they have done so far for the betterment of people up in the mountain. So we take this opportunity to call up on stage Chairman of Himalayan Trust New Zealand, Peter Hillary, to share some of his words.
Well, thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here. You know, I was really struck when we had that minute's silence. It wasn't something I was going to talk about, but it did actually remind me of the cost of climbing the world's highest mountain, how hard it is, how high it is, and how dangerous it can be. And during that minute, I found my mind wandering, and it took me back to a time many years ago in 1984 when we were attempting a route up the west ridge of Mount Everest, a really fearsome ridge that delineates the Chinese-Tibetan side and the Nepalese side of the mountain. And on that occasion, we were up there at 8,300 meters, and one of my climbing friends, a very dear friend of mine called Fred Fromm, slipped and fell. And I just remember looking up and seeing him flying past, flailing in the air. And of course, I never saw Fred again. He disappeared down the face, the north face of Everest, down into the wrong book of Tibet. And that really is the potential cost of climbing on Mount Everest. Even on the standard routes, the North Ridge or the Southeast Ridge that my father in Tenzing pioneered, it's a tough mountain. And if you go off onto some of the other routes, like the West Ridge, it gets even tougher. But I guess in a way, that's where the success of reaching the summit is so important. And you know, what I think is so important about Everest Day is that Nepal really put New Zealand on the map. And I think sometimes we go, really? You know, most people in the world in 1953 were barely aware of our three little islands down here in the South Pacific. A bunch of farmers living an idyllic sort of life, and no one knew much about us. And then suddenly, these two guys on a British expedition reached the summit of the world's highest mountain. An amazing piece of teamwork between Nepal and New Zealand. And I think that really put New Zealand on the map. So thank you, Nepal, for helping put us on the global map. Well, I'm very proud to now be the new Himalayan Trust chairperson. We continue our work with education and health and environmental work. And of course, Everest Day is an incredibly important time to celebrate what has gone in the past, what we continue to do, the connections between the two countries, and the work we continue to do in the beautiful country of Nepal. And Everest Day is that significant day that we will celebrate every year. And with my son, Alexander here, who is really our communications manager at the Himalayan Trust, has set up our Fiver for Ed. So we've asked everyone to reach deep, pull out those $5 bills and send them to the Himalayan Trust so we can help support the people in Nepal as they go through this terrible pandemic. But looking forward, we're looking forward to 2023. It's a special date, and Everest Day will be especially important because it'll be the 70th anniversary of the first ascent of Mount Everest by these two guys, the great mountaineering team that were the first to put boot prints on the top of the world's highest mountain. We'll be launching the new Sir Edmund Hillary Visitor Centre, which is built in Dad's first school at the village of Kundrum, right in the shadow of Mount Everest. And that'll be opened on the 29th of May, 2023. We'll be having celebrations in Kathmandu, Delhi, London, and then back here in New Zealand. We'll also be involved in some new films about the Hillary connection with Everest and the great challenge of climbing the world's highest mountain. You know, for me, when I stood on the top of the mountain for the first time, it was way back in 1990. And we had one of the latest satellite telephones. It weighed 90 kilograms. And that didn't include the batteries or the Honda generator. So, of course, we had a walkie-talkie that was patched into it. So you imagine we're standing on the summit of the world's highest mountain with this walkie-talkie, and a call comes in from a journalist. It was sort of a joke, I think, his question, because he said to me, "How does it feel to follow in your father's footsteps?" But you know, the reality is that those symbolic footprints, they really are still out there, not just on the summit of Mount Everest or the little narrow footpaths of the Himalayas, but in the minds of people around the world. Following Ed Hillary's footprints are a lasting aspiration for all of us to try harder, go further, be more generous, because a generosity of spirit really is the greatest legacy. And as the great bond between New Zealand and Nepal, I think, ably attests. So thank you very much.